So we just read the story The Iron Shoes from the von Franz Xavier von Schoenwerth's The Turnip Princess. And I'll go ahead and give a summary and then we'll just kind of talk about it. There was a son of the groundskeeper for the king, and his father was kind of getting really mad at him, just wondering what he was doing with his life, and told him to that he should go out into the wide world and kind of, you know, see if that helps. So the son kind of goes and he encounters like an old castle, and he walks through the threshold, and there's not a soul around, very quiet. And he walks through all the rooms, and he gets very, very tired. And so he lays down, and a woman in black comes in, and she brings him a meal and tells him to lay on the bed. And he goes to sleep, and at midnight, he's woken up by a man in black who abuses him greatly. And the next morning, the woman comes back and she has a meal for him, and she tells him that she is a princess trapped there. And or maybe she tells him that later, but
I think she tells him that later, but she
yeah.
does come back in with some food. Yeah.
Mm. And so he stays, and that night two men come in and dressed in black, and they abuse him even worse than the last night. And the next morning he wants to leave. And then yeah, that must be when she tells him that she's a princess, and that if he can just stay one more night, she will be freed from their grasp. And so the third night, again, he endures, and it's worse than the first two nights. And there are three men, and excuse me, and they toss him up and down, and it's yeah, it's a they put him through hell. But the next morning, she's wearing white, and and in gratitude, she offers her hand in marriage. So they live there at the castle pretty happily for a while. But he has not forgotten his father, and he goes back to visit him. And she says, she gives him a ring, and if you like turn the collet of the ring, uh, she will come to help him, but to not seek her help for frivolous reasons. So he goes back to the king's that his is his father's employer grounds, and the old man, his father, does not recognize him. And the king sees him, thinking he's like a rich foreign prince, and hosts a grand party for him. And during that party, there's dancing, but the knights don't want to let him dance because he's so handsome that they're jealous of him. And he brags to them that his wife is better looking than all their wives, but they won't believe him. So then he turns the ring, and his there's a grand uh you know retinue of carriages and things, and his wife shows up, and she is indeed the most beautiful of the wives, and they dance, and it's presumably a wonderful night. And the next morning, Hans wakes up, and his old clothes are laid out on the bed, and his wife is gone, and there are iron shoes there, and there's a note saying that um, she's gone. Don't look for her. And even if he wears out these iron shoes, he'll never find her. So he's humiliated, and he goes to search for her. And his searches take him to a mountaintop where there are three men arguing over three magical objects. The first of them, well, there. Okay, so there's a bag or a purse that never stops filling up with money, and there is excuse me, there are shoes that can, or boots, shoes that can take you 100 miles at a step, and there is a cloak of invisibility. So he says he'll settle the dispute, and so he empties the coin purse a few times on the ground. It indeed keeps filling up with gold. And he puts on the invisibility cloak, puts on the shoes, and absconds with the bag. And so he was on top of a mountain, so he presumably goes down the mountain. And he's going, at this incredible pace, 100 miles a step. And he notices at some point there's a little man running alongside him, and it's the wind. And the wind informs him that he is rushing to try to get to the wedding of a princess so that he can dry off her newly washed clothes so that they will be ready in time for her wedding. And he thinks this is probably his wife, and so he tells the wind that he can, that they need to hurry, and he kind of lashes the wind behind him so that the wind can keep up with him. So he's literally running like faster than the wind to kind of to try to find his wife. And so he gets to town, and he's not like dressed richly or anything. So at an inn, they pay him no mind. But then he throws some coins around, and then they jump to, and he kind of converses with the people there, and he realizes this indeed is his wife that is about to get married. Now at the ceremony, he yeah, he has on the invisibility cloak, and so they can't see him. And he knocks the book out of the parson's hand to try to sabotage the ceremony. And every time the husband to be, the groom, is about to say "I do," he hits him in the mouth so hard that the sound rings throughout the chapel. And so, like, I don't know what it would be like to be at that wedding and not know what's going on, but they just can't finish the wedding. I mean, the book won't stay in the priest's hand, and the guy just keeps getting hit in the mouth, and he just can't say "I do." So, so then everybody just goes to dinner, and well, it's already set up. Uh, so then, yeah, the Hans, he sits with the sort of the beggars that sort of don't have anything, and they're sort of like watching all the dishes go by, and they're sort of like he's taking food off the dishes, I think, and but anyway, he's getting food from there, and he's sharing it with them. And at some point, as he's doing that, his ring falls off. And one of the servants recognizes the initials of the princess on the ring and takes the ring to the princess. And she realizes what's going on. She and Hans talk, they make up, and then they get, and then there's, and then they have the wedding, this time with the right bride and groom.
Yeah. Yeah. Which leaves me feeling pretty bad for the guy that got punched in the face and then
I
had his
know.
had
I
his wife
know.
stolen.
I know you're
Um,
kind of just hoping maybe he's like kind of a prick or something like that. But yeah, hopefully he's not just like a good, decent guy that picked the wrong woman.
yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, yeah, no, I think that was a great summary. I think you hit all the major points. Um, I don't know, what did you think overall?
Well, I mean, overall, I thought it's a little bit about class, rags to riches. Hans is the layabout son of the groundskeeper to the king, and he ends up being de facto a prince. And I think it's also about transformation. Uh, and so Rags to Riches is about transformation too. but also about transformation of his character. So, and how he goes about that is important. It's interesting because he's not so he saves a princess, but not in your typical in what I think of as the typical way of like slaying a dragon, but this is more like just enduring the torments of the dragon. Like he
Mm,
suffers for her, which is kind of like beautiful or something. And yeah, and dedication, but he's not mature enough and he needs to show off. He's not mature enough to obey a simple request, which is, I will come and help you. Just don't, not for a trivial reason, please. Like take this seriously. So he doesn't, then he has to really pay, then he has to really suffer, and he has to really like seek her out this time. I mean, he goes practically to the ends of the earth, we can say. He goes to the top of a mountain, you can say. Mythologically, that's the highest place in the world. And then he goes all the way back down. He goes back down to where the lowest in society are begging. He goes down to the status of a beggar. And
nice.
then he doesn't try directly to get back his wife, but in doing service to his fellow man, the ring falls off, and then someone comes to his aid. The resource that he has acquired through dedication, through suffering, through love, brings them back together, and then yeah, and now he's truly ready to live as a hero, as an adult.
Yeah.
That's sort of my basic gloss of like what I thought so far.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. One of the things that and I think you really pointed out the main like the most important parts of this that I wasn't even quite clear on, but I was looking at it as kind of like two fairy tales, right? So you have like fairy tales usually like one little character arc, like something changes. So he goes from being the poor son of, in the castle, like you said, rags to riches. He goes from being rags to, marrying this princess. And you would sort of like that in and of itself would be one sort of fairy tale. But as you say, even at that point, he's not mature and and also he's not able to sort of leave his father behind. So I think there's some sort of a like pointer there in that maybe I don't know, maybe when we're not concerned about whether our parents approve of us or whether we've earned their love when clearly they don't give a shit about us. Like what was the phrase? I just want to read it. This is one day the father flew into a rage with the boy and he said, "Why don't you just beat it? And let's hope that you learn some sense by going out into the world." Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not a nice
yeah,
dad, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So maybe there's some link there between like trying to earn his father's love and the need for immaturity. I'm not sure. But then there's the whole second arc of like, oh, he loses the princess. You could have a fairy tale where there's this immature prince who's about to marry the princess and behaves poorly and chases her off instead of breaks his vow from like the first part of the end part of the first fairy tale.
Mm,
Um, and then has to kind of win her back.
mm.
And I think it's really interesting the immaturity piece, like the winning of the princess, the sort of metaphorical, like, oh, you have gone through the trials and you have earned whatever the reward is, whether it's a kingdom or a bunch of money or a marriage or whatever. Um, that you also need to be prepared to, you need to be the person who can hold that thing that you win, and he wasn't. And so he has to go on like a second journey. And I'm thinking of like if you're familiar with the Arthur mythos, King Arthur and the Grail, quest for the Holy Grail.
Not
Um,
much.
fair enough. Maybe we'll do one of those. I love that
That'd be
whole the
good.
whole cycle.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be great.
But in the I think it's the story of the Fisher King. It's one of the it's like the main Grail story. Percival has to go to the castle. He has to they're questing for the Grail. They're trying to find the Grail, and he manages through trials and tribulations. He ends up at the Grail Castle and he makes a mistake and he doesn't behave properly in the presence of the Grail and the Fisher King who's wielding the Grail. Um, and so he's kicked out, and then he has to come back years later, and he asks the right question and receives the Grail, and everything works out. But there is this like that's often I've heard that story spoken about as like you have a few chances in your life to really like undergo some healing or have some sort of spiritual, uh, breakthrough kind of a thing. The Grail Castle, whatever the blessed place is,
Hmm.
you only have a limited number of times that you actually get to access that in your life. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's a whole other topic. And so sort of like if you fail the first time, you can give up, but there's this hope of there always being a second chance or a way to go
Mm.
further.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of what this one's pointing to. Um, yeah, so I don't know if that's really my overall thing. I'd love to get into the specifics, but if you have anything to say before we do,
I mean, what you just said, that makes sense. Um, and yeah, I do think there are, I mean, in terms of there being a limited number of times, that seems like a good, at least myth to have to like remind yourself, hey, like, don't take it for granted. Like, there's not, if you think there's unlimited or many, many times, then maybe you take it for granted and you won't really bring your best game to,
yeah,
to that. And yeah, and it does seem like, in life there is some pattern of sometimes where yeah, you're ready. Yeah, you've trained, like, just use a sports analogy, like you've trained, everything's pretty much ready, but your head's not quite there. Yeah, you're not quite mature enough. It's, yeah, you have the requisite skills in general, but everything hasn't quite come together. Yeah, you had, and immaturity seems particularly where this would be true, where maybe you have all the requisite skills and you're and maybe you've maybe also you've always had promise and people have always told you how good you are, and maybe you're kind of narcissistic about it, and yeah, and you're not quite there. You don't have the right soul, exactly, the mixture in your soul. You don't have enough humility, you don't have enough grit, things like that, yeah. And that seems like the the prince or Hans in this story too. Yeah, he's had some adventure. He's faced the dark castle and being alone and being tormented, and he's shown perseverance through like going through it 3 nights. But he obviously still has like a chip on his shoulder. He's still kind of immature, still, so these snooty knights are jealous of him. And so he could take that as like, hey, not so bad. Like I can kind of just enjoy the night. Things aren't didn't work out with my dad, but I did what I needed to do and try to show him love or respect. And uh, yeah, that's how it's gonna go. And things, are really good for me. Like I'm doing pretty well in life. I have this beautiful wife, and I'm living in this castle. Uh, like things are pretty good. One rule, just got to follow. It's not really that hard, right? But yeah, he needs to show these snooty knights up, these people who are born to a higher class. He needs to show them up.
yeah.
So,
In fact, I want to look at that. I have you sort of some I was following you and this idea popped into my head. So, um, I forget exactly what did it. Hang on, where does it say? Not forget his father. The knights made fun of him when he claimed that his wife was more beautiful than all of the others, and he was so annoyed that he turned the ring. So it's interesting because, and I want to go back to the beginning of the story in a minute because I have more ideas about like the three knights and the changes that happen there.
mm,
But I will briefly just say that that is he reacts to that challenge passively. He
Mm-hmm.
sits and he gets beaten and he doesn't respond, right? Um, and then later he's and he kind of can't respond in that at that point. I think doesn't I don't know, maybe I'm going out on a limb here. No, it doesn't really say. They just the vicious men just attack him. Okay. So he responds kind of like he goes through the trial and he wins the princess. So he kind of goes through that first character arc that we were talking about, but he's not active in that. He's in bed, he's laying there, he's letting things happen to him, and
Mm-hmm.
he's sort of um, you know, surviving the struggle, which
Mm-hmm.
is good, and that earns him the
Mm-hmm.
princess.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets to a point where he's he's being recognized as a prince. He's sort of come
Mm-hmm.
into something of his own there,
Mm-hmm.
through the favor of the princess, through the sort
Mm-hmm.
of whatever it is that she represents, sort of brings him this favor. But other men are mocking him, and rather than just bear it in a mature way, like you were saying, or even in a mature way, like stand up for himself, like screw you guys, you're gonna talk smack about my wife, like let's go outside and settle this like gentlemen, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking, knights and princes. They
Mm-hmm.
were not, nobody's gonna get sued for starting a fight or get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he doesn't. What he does is he calls the wife in, and that's very kind of childlike. It's like, well, honey, come and save me. They don't believe
Yeah.
you're beautiful, and I can't take any action to prove myself. I need you to
Yeah.
come in and prove it for me.
Yeah.
Like
And the situation he set up, he said that his wife was more pretty. I mean, did
right,
you need to say that? Like,
right.
but yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
No, no, that's a really good point that he's already in a position of pride and but pride, like, but he's not feeling confident, right? Because if you're like, well, my wife's hotter than your wife, you're not coming into that conversation from a confident place if you're saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're pretty doubtful. So then what I found real interesting was he goes through all the trials and tribulations. The secondary, she leaves him. Well, actually, I wanted to say real quick, she leaves him, and she says, "You'll never find me again, even if you wear out these shoes." But
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that she left him a note telling him that, and she left him the shoes. So
Yeah.
it's almost like you don't want to trust what she's saying, because what the words are saying is one thing, but what she's saying with her gift and her communication is, here are shoes, wear them out.
Yeah.
Even if you do this, you'll never find me. But like, why give him the shoes? So the shoes become this object of like sort of an incentive to go on a quest, even if you're not certain what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Which
it's the
he could have
greatest
just ignored.
challenge.
He could have just ignored and been like, well, she's left me, now I'm destitute. But he's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to stand up to her resistance and prove that I'm a good guy,
So
you
then
know?
he's finally being active.
Yes, he's finally being active. He goes up, he steals the goodies from the other guys. He chases with the wind. He does all the things. But one thing I thought, to sort of wrap up this little bit, was he goes into the wedding and he's not there. So there's just this like 'cause he's invisible. He's there, but
Hmm.
you don't see him.
Hmm.
So there's the princess and the sort of stand-in husband
Hmm.
who's not really present at all.
Hmm.
At all. Like, we don't know his name. There's no description of him. It's just we just know she's getting married to somebody. So he's very like NPC,
Hmm.
non-player character kind of a thing. Like, he's not really in the story. But what does happen is Hans, our erstwhile prince, he says, he takes an active stance. He says, no, this isn't going to happen. She's my wife, which, I mean, could be kind of rude. In real life would be very rude, but I think within not rude, be kind of criminal, but in the story, in the realm of fairy tale, like, a wedding is happening and he's not where he should be. And so he's saying he's actively reclaiming his place.
Hmm.
He's stopping the false ceremony. He's
Hmm.
punching the guy in the mouth. So like, if he had knocked something out of the knight's hands and punched one of them in the mouth, he wouldn't have had to turn the ring. He wouldn't have had to call the princess in to save him. And then he does that, but that still doesn't do enough for him to kind of take over in the place of the groom where he's meant to be, he
Mm,
has to go and sit with the beggars, like you said,
mm,
take care of them,
yeah.
use his powers to steal food, bring it to the hungry people. And
Yeah.
in doing so, the token of recognition, the proof of who he actually is, and the key to bringing him back into his place as the groom
Yeah.
is transmitted to the princess.
Yeah.
So it's through selfless action,
Yeah.
it's through the caring for of others that he's able to step into his rightful place, which is again, if he had just been like, oh well, I'm the groundkeeper's son. These knights are these arrogant rich kids or whatever, these nobles.
Hmm.
I don't need to be concerned with them. I know my place. Like they're just being prideful. I know how beautiful my wife is. I don't have to prove myself to them. If he had taken that position originally, he never would have gotten in trouble. So he makes up for his past errors,
Mm.
and therefore the thing that was taken from him is given back to him because he's sort of repaired the past.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I thought that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like sitting with the beggars and giving them alms is like his penance for his arrogance and
Mhm.
his sins, his mistakes.
Yeah, it's like a remembering where he came from. I mean, I guess he wasn't a beggar.
Yeah.
Well, he was. He got, he was the son of a groundskeeper, and he got kicked out. So
Yeah,
he
and
was a
then he
beggar
was
for a
a
while.
vagabond. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a beggar. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he was a person without place in society. So,
yes,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and then the
exactly.
other people who don't really have a position or place, yeah, he helps them. And I took that to be he helped them for a good while until the ring fell off. It's and that's I don't know if you did you say that that's kind of like yeah, he uh he worked with them enough to where he lost his identity as like a prince in a way. So it to me that symbolically is saying he was really among them, like instead of he was just like a rich guy, like sort of helping out in the soup kitchen for like an hour, like playing. Like he was really the word work occurred to me like he was really like he was really there with them. So he
Yeah,
really lowered himself, so to speak. He was really, yeah, he wasn't the pompous nouveau riche guy anymore. He wasn't, he had long since not been the just, yeah, immature kid who knew nothing, but he kind of knows who he is at this point and has a quiet confidence. So,
yeah, yeah. And I think you make a good point when you said he loses his identity. I had not seen that, but I think it's a really good catch because the when he shows up as a nouveau riche guy, the thing he falls back on, like the thing that he's like, no, no, I am special, is the ring. Like the ring is the thing that he
right.
has
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
proves that
Yeah.
he's like, whatever. And so he's
Yeah. That's right.
so busy taking care of the poor people that he loses that. And I see doesn't seem to freak out about it. At least we don't hear him like scrambling for the ring. He seems, I imagine well, actually at that point, no, he's still invisible because the ring didn't make him invisible. So I assume he's probably still taking the food and maybe
Mm.
didn't even notice that he lost the one thing that was like his proof of like, no, I am special. See, look how special, like, look how hot my wife is,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
sort
the
of.
way I took it too. The ring fell off. So he
Mhm,
was busy doing something that I think he saw was an important thing to do as part of his journey. And he wasn't self-conscious anymore of the ring. So yeah, it's like he really was working with them.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, that kind of genuineness. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, this story is kind of maybe it's not medieval, it's sort of more Christian or sort of spiritual or religious in like yeah, he doesn't slay a dragon, he doesn't kill anybody. He just takes it, but then he's still immature, but then yeah, he really has to work hard. And there is some like thievery and things, but that's yeah but yeah but then he has to work like yeah with the really indigent. Yeah, the stuff about the father, I had not quite realized that until we were talking about it. Yeah, I thought maybe the father was kicking him out at first just because maybe he's a lazy layabout and maybe the father doesn't have a very soft manner. But yeah, maybe he is kind of like he doesn't really care that much about him. Uh, yeah, he's not really like he's probably not like just doing it for his own good, kicking him out. He's kind of like annoyed by him. It's not a very loving father, and that is supported by when he comes back having made something of himself in the world, which the father, if he loved him, would be very happy about. The father does not recognize him.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
Harsh
point.
reality.
Yeah, I mean, what does he say? The father, let's hope you learn some sense by going out into the world.
Hmm.
Well, he did. He comes back a
Yeah.
prince. Like, so
Yeah.
if his father was really like you said, like doing it in a like, well, tough love kind of way, like, kid, you
Yeah.
got to go get your shit together. If
Yeah.
if you if you send your son out with a go get your shit together, son, and he comes back a prince, you're like, well
You got
done.
it together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it more
Yeah.
together than I thought you could. Welcome home. But yeah, says he found his old father, who was still working hard on the king's ground. The man did not recognize him. That's it. That's the end. That's the end of the
Yeah.
father in the story.
Yeah.
Um, and then he sort of the sort of in the I don't know, the alchemy of the story, or just in the structure of the story.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like the king sort of steps in to
That I do
replace the
too.
father,
I
you
do
know?
too. Yeah. But then he screws up with that. He's not able to like hang with the king and the knights. He has to be like kind of a baby, like tantruming and, you know, he's superior, right? He is thought to be the rich foreign prince, and people are jealous of him. He could be gracious, mysterious, uh, yeah, and yeah, hang with his new sort of surrogate father. But yeah, he shows that he doesn't have what it takes yet. He doesn't have that metal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, isn't there something about him having the ring and not using it? Like, is there something about this may be like another story that we've read?
There's a lot
Um,
of similarities, yeah.
but like, yeah, isn't there something virtuous about you having magic power but not using it? Like instead using your personal virtue and everything?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, in fairy tales and myths and whatnot, that's a standard trope of not using magical power for self, self-aggrandizing ends to make yourself
Yeah.
look or feel special. But in this one,
Right.
especially, that she says, "Don't use it to summon me if it's not necessary."
Yeah.
She advised him. Like, she made there's no wiggle room there. Like, the guy got clear instructions. And he summons her out of annoyance, and
Yeah.
she comes and they dance, and everyone was happy, and then she's gone the next morning. So, like, he gets exactly what he wants, but then he loses everything that he has. And I mean, there's definitely a lot of spiritual tales. The one that comes to mind is in the Tibetan tradition, I think it's the Kagyu school. There's Milarepa is one of the famous Tibetan sages, and he um, out of jealousy and anger, I think him and his mother get disowned by his family. I don't quite remember the story, but the key point is he goes and he learns black magic, and he casts a spell on the house, and the house collapses, and all the relatives he was angry with are they die. And then he feels a lot of remorse, and he goes to look for like forgiveness and enlightenment. And he has to do a lot of different labors to make up for that arrogance. So, I mean, if you've got the German peasants and the Tibetan spiritual tradition giving you the same message, it's probably an important message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense too, that yeah, you screwed up. I think that's one of the biggest things we screw up in life as adults is because of arrogance, of wanting, and there's probably something about wanting acceptance here with like the father and the nobles and all that stuff. There's something about that. But yeah, all of that is about sort of your ego and wanting acceptance, wanting recognition, want, wanting praise, wanting flattery. And and it makes sense that if you have that in your soul, it's not gonna go away easy. I think you do need, and I speak from personal experience as well. I think you need like years of like pain to like learn that lesson. I don't know. The ego can keep like interpreting things as like blaming whatever your way is, whatever your justification is that you happen to cling to. It's blaming others or thinking you're truly better, but it's just not showing up, and people need to recognize it. Blah blah blah. You're gonna keep going with that justification. If you got an ego, you're gonna big ego. You're gonna keep going with that justification for a long time. I think you do need to suffer like for years
Yeah.
before you'll finally learn that lesson. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? I think, yeah.
Mm. It's a good question because like I both agree and disagree, and I'm not quite sure how to balance it. But I do think, that kind of resentment is poison. That kind of like they're not recognizing me, how dare they? Um, if you just hold on to that as a story, you are going to suffer, and there's not much that can be done. And I think, how do I put this? The best way to look at that, maybe from like a third person perspective. So not necessarily like, personal experience. I have similar personal experience. It's hard to look at from your own experience. There's so much that gets in the way. But if you look at it just from like an objective viewpoint, like you're trying to do something that isn't true and isn't so like, let's say people would recognize you, but you're so painfully shy, my case, you can't really make a good case for yourself. You can't show up. You're very nervous. You get tight in the body. You can't genuinely be yourself. You're thinking about so hard about how much everybody's going to laugh at you or how dumb you're going to look or, oh man, nobody likes me. I'm such a loser. Like you're so focused on that when you try and go and connect with somebody or have a conversation with somebody you respect and they sort of blow you off, you're like, oh, they didn't see me for who I was. Well, like you can cling to that story because it makes you feel better, but life doesn't want you to cling to that story. That story
Hmm.
is not describing the problem to yourself accurately.
Hmm.
And if you were to get a solution to your problem with that story, you'd be learning the wrong lesson. And I
Yeah.
don't think I think life wants us to learn the right lesson,
Yeah.
which,
I agree.
in my case was like, be okay with being shy. Don't hate yourself. Um, don't think everybody's immediately going to reject you, or at least notice how tight you are in your body and the kind of energy I'm sending out into the conversation and what that does to this conversation. So in that case, that's me taking responsibility for the effect I'm having on other people. Oh, hey, that's at least half the problem. And if I stop being so hard on myself, then if somebody rejects me, I'm still okay because I'm not hating myself. I'm like, hey, I'm a decent guy. I got stuff to say. I can show up and say it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, fine. We won't talk anymore. I'll go somewhere else. But if I'm already tight and hating myself, then I'm carrying
Yeah.
that pain into every conversation. And if
Yeah.
somebody recognizes me and says, oh, hey, you're really smart coming up, but I'm still carrying that pain, I'm
Yeah.
going to do something stupid with the ring and I'm going
Right.
to still be immature and it's going to cause all these
Right.
problems. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
yeah,
very good. Yeah,
yeah,
what you bring in, it sounds almost trite to say, but yeah, what you bring into the situation really, really has an effect on the outcome. And yeah,
yeah.
part of your personal development is what? Maybe being able to understand yourself enough to not to understand the effect of the things that you're bringing into the situation. So, like, say what you were just talking about, like maybe your shyness, and then the interaction now is a little awkward or something, but then you can understand instead of withdrawing more or something like that, you can understand to repair, to make a joke, to do something, to remember to relax, like, and to do something to repair it, to kind of go on, and not to start to get into a mental state where you need to turn, where you start to want to turn the ring, where you want to play your trump card, your one
Yeah.
trump card.
Yeah. 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 And I think for me, the sort of go-to is that sort of gets me out of there is to admit to myself I'm being shy or I'm being awkward or something, and maybe even speak about it. Like, oh, hey, wow, I'm actually really nervous right now. I didn't expect to feel so nervous meeting you, but like, man, my hands are shaky. But I'm really happy to meet you. Like, I think, and then you can kind of once you put something once you stop feeling like you have to hide something about
Mm,
yourself, it becomes a lot easier to just not deal with it. Like, okay, I'm
mm.
shy. I'm shy. Oh, I don't have to hide that can be in this conversation. Oh, it's not useful in this conversation. I can just put it aside and I can be the other things that I can be. But once
Yeah, that's
shyness becomes
good.
a problem, then you're holding on to it, even if you're holding on to it to make sure it doesn't come out. You're focusing on it really hard,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, you're
still it's
focusing on it. Yeah.
yeah, it's still going to come out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And you kind of make it as you, it's like what you focus in life really changes your life, right? Like we all
Mhm.
have many things from the outside and inside our body that are presenting themselves to us, but what we focus on really determines a lot, right?
Mhm.
And then it makes it more real. I mean, and it makes it more a part of our mental landscape. And then, yeah, you're double clicking on that thing, and that icon is getting bigger and bigger.
Nice, nice. I like that. I like that metaphor. Yeah, and I think one thing to caution there, or caution ourselves about. Um, because what you said, I think, is true. That what we focus on um, becomes more integrated into our life and can grow and can move. Um, the thing that's dangerous is that can be misinterpreted as I should only look at the good things
Yeah.
and never investigate any of the problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the secret key there, that at least for me, that I've discovered is I don't want to speak for everyone, but what I've discovered is in not wanting to look at something bad that is present, that is happening. Um, the thing I'm actually focusing on the fact that I couldn't handle it if this bad thing happened.
Mm,
That's what my attention is on. That's what's growing. I'm actually growing my own weakness. I'm growing my
mm,
inability to handle the problem.
mm,
Even though I think, oh, I'm just focusing on love and light. I'm just focusing on a happy
mhm,
future. You
mhm,
know, you can do that, and that's good. And at the same time, if you feel something in your nervous system, in your body somewhere, that gets tight and that says no, and that says I don't want to, or it says I'm scared, or whatever number of things it might say, if you don't attend to that, you're also telling yourself, oh, I can only be happy if I
Yeah, that's
ignore
right.
this thing. And
Yeah.
that weakens your happiness. It strengthens the thing that is trying to get your attention, because it's got to get louder to get your attention, and
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
weakens your ability to kind of manage both of them. So if you can focus on the fact that you're strong enough to want the good thing and deal with the pain, and say, okay, maybe I have to go slow, maybe whatever, maybe I have to feed the beggars for a while before I can really show up for my princess. But I'm
Hmm.
not going to twist the ring and ask her to come save me again. I'm not going to just focus on the good thing. I'm not going to like give into my weaknesses.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to ignore those things. Yeah, you just want to, yeah, ignoring it completely is like, I'm scared of it. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, you have to deal with it, but deal with it in the right way to where you're not exacerbating it.
Yeah. 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 Because the flip side is, oh man, I have this problem and I'm really working hard on this problem and it's really dragging my life down. And man, it's so hard. It's you've completely forgotten that you can focus on the good and you can draw in the good and the kind of things that you want. So you want to have both of those kind of going at the same time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And that in general means that you have to engender a flexibility of mind, right? A relaxedness to life, a a soft focus, a soft vigilance, or something like that, right? You have to be able to, and that seems like mindfulness meditation and other maybe types of mindfulness, like being in nature or something like that, maybe facilitate that. That's sort of like I can keep track of many variables and know what's important, know what's not, and know how much to focus on each thing and how to deal with things as they come up. And uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would not have included nature in that off the top of my head, but I think you were totally right, and that is a huge practice for me, and I'm not sure why I didn't think of that when you were listing things. Why it kind of surprised me to hear you say that, because I do think that nature is is a kind of mindfulness. It does a very similar thing. There's something about all of these beings, these trees and these bushes and these things, the animals and the birds and everything, and the flowers, the bugs, everything coexisting all together without anything discrete, like, no, this is the tree, and then next to
yeah,
it is the
yeah,
bush, and they never
yeah,
touch the, it's,
yeah,
you really feel the wholeness together. And I think
yeah,
nature kind of holds that space for us to step into and realize that we have that kind of space in ourselves where we can hold the positive views of our of what we want and what we want to grow in our life, while still holding space for the things that say no or are afraid of stepping into that, and kind of being able to hold both of those together so they don't threaten each other. You know, I
yeah,
think the way I would think to put it is it's a question of identification. So if you're
mm,
defining yourself as this positive vision only, I'm only
yeah,
focusing on that, that's who I am, or that's who I want to be, and everything else is not me and I can't look at
yeah,
it. You're
yeah,
you're very stuck on this vision. And the same
yeah,
thing if you're in a victim mindset of, oh, my life's terrible, oh, I'm having a hard time, there's nothing I can do about it, it's just always going to be like this. That's not to say I haven't been in that position. I have been in that
mm,
position many times in my life, and people
mm,
do and are, and they have every right to be in both of those positions.
mm,
It's just that neither of those singular I'm identified with the positive self, I'm identified with this negative story of myself. Neither of those is going to give you the relief and the healing and the growth that you actually need and want and crave and are here in this life to achieve. So it's
mm.
just like you're just going about it the wrong way. And sometimes you have to do that, like, you have to suffer for a while, like you were saying, to really be able to see what you're doing and to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioning identity, I was thinking of the ring. The ring has the initials of the princess on it. She gave it to him when he first ventured out of the dark castle, which is like his first. So after his first transformation into a man, he's still not completely mature man. He goes out and he's wearing this ring and he can call her for help at any time. So yeah, in a way he's still not completely strong or independent or something like that. He's not completely mature, not completely developed, I guess. And only when he loses that sort of bib, or I don't know, that sort of tether, uh and he's shown himself he can do many different things. He can seek, he can use trickery, he can for stand up to society, like at the marriage, I mean at the wedding, and he can, serve the lowest members of society. And then he loses that ring. And so it's like he's truly kind of shown that he's truly ready to be with her. He and yeah, he's lost that sort of like help, that the magical help that she can offer him. And he can, maybe that's a sign that he can truly bring everything, all of his potential now that's fully developed to their relationship. And so he's truly ready.
Yeah, because he's not hanging on her to save
Yeah.
him. He's able to
Yeah.
save himself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So it's
And
more a
again,
relationship between equals. Yeah. Go ahead.
right. Yeah. Yeah. They're equals now. Yeah. Cause before, yeah, she had obviously been much more experienced than him, much more, you know, she had been captured. She had been living in, she had been suffering and sort of been, for a long time in this dark castle. And yeah, he only went through 3 days. And so he's still kind of, yeah, not her equal. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then when he can really stand up on his own, he can go to the top of the mountain. He can use guile. He does all sorts of things. He shows all sorts of, on his hero's journey, he shows all sorts of skill development and including like charity and benevolence. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
I,
he stops asking her to save him like he does
yeah.
in that
Yeah.
first, in that first scene where he turns the ring. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, what did you think? You said you had more to say about the beginning of the story, right? The
Yeah, yeah,
early in
yeah.
the castle.
Yeah, I really liked that part. It almost felt like a just well, I guess I said it kind of felt like a fairy tale on its own, but just those 3 nights, like it's a lot of rich symbolism. So I'm picturing this guy, I was thinking of him kind of like you had said, sort of a lazy layabout. Like he's not fitting in well with his father as the groundskeeper. Like that,
That's for yeah.
his father's whatever he says, you're being dumb or you're being useless or whatever. I'm not going to pick up the book again. But his father kicks him out for being annoying. So he's not fulfilling whatever role he is given to him there. It's not a fit for him. And the sort of story that he's existing in is you're useless, you're no good. You just get out of here and go bother be a burden on somebody else. I'm done dealing with you.
Mm,
Um, and he goes and he finds this old castle, which I think in most fairy tales is some, you could put a lot of labels on it, but the basic idea of like, oh, something old, something maybe something ancestral or something from the past or something in the unconscious, or there's any number of those things that are all kind of parts of what it actually is, but it's something old and something ruined, so something forgotten. So he
mm,
goes to like the forgotten place,
mm,
and he walks in, and the woman, I hope I'm remembering this correctly. The woman, the first night he comes in, she gives him a meal,
mm,
cannot speak, says nothing, and
mm,
is dressed in black and
mm,
just points at the bed.
mm.
So he comes in, he's exhausted. He's like in the room. She comes in out of nowhere, puts food on the table, points at the bed, as in you can sleep in the bed, and then leaves without saying anything to him.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then the guy comes in and beats him up,
Yeah.
right? And in the morning, I think in the morning he wants to leave. Is that
I think he wants to leave the after the second night. And she
towards,
was
yeah.
dressed in gray the
So,
after the
so
the next morning.
yeah. So the next morning she appears, this time in gray, and she brought him food and drink for the entire day,
Hmm.
but she didn't say a word.
Yeah.
Um, so this is like the second day before the second night. And so you see like whatever, I always like to look at these things from a psychological perspective, but
Mm,
I think it's kind of the best way to see this. Like if you're looking at he's he didn't fit into his world. So there's some part of him that is missing.
mm,
If he had fit into the world, he that would be the place for him to fit. And the
mm,
fact that he doesn't means he's looking for something else. He needs something else to really feel alive and like he's engaged in his life.
mm,
So he goes to the old castle and is presented with this woman in black who feeds him a little bit. He deals with some pain in, like, like we said, in a passive way, but that is like, if you, as you said, if you were going to mature, you have to suffer. So he sort of passively goes through a little bit of suffering. Then the woman shows up and now she's in gray and she feeds him the whole day, but she still can't speak. So the element of himself that was black and didn't talk and only had a little bit of food, after he suffered a little bit, is clearer to him.
mm,
Black being shadowed, white
mm,
being light, not a racial thing, obviously,
mm,
but just shadow and light. So
mm,
so she's lightening and she's able to feed him more. And then the second night he gets beat up by two guys,
mm,
and rightfully so. In the morning he's kind of ready to leave because nobody's told him anything. And he's
mm,
like, well, is this just every day I get fed, every night I get beat up? Like, I don't want to,
mm,
what am I going to stick around for this for?
mm,
But luckily at that point, this part of his soul or whatever,
mm,
whatever the woman, she's not the princess yet, but the woman is,
mm,
she shows up on the third day before the third night in white, and she's able to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
So she's clearer. Um, yeah. So the boy made up his mind to leave and packed up his belongings in the morning of the third day. Just then, the woman, this time dressed in white, entered the room, and she asked him to spend just one more night there.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, this other part of his soul is now in the light. She's white. She's able to be seen, and she's able to communicate with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no longer just this like mute part of your soul, there's this thing you're feeling, like there's actual communication happening. And she says, just one more night and like you'll break the spell. She just says one more night, but the idea being you'll break the spell. Like whatever this process
Mm-hmm.
is you've been going through, if we're looking through it psychologically, this healing process, this part of you is coming into light, and you just have to bear one more moment of suffering. And
Yeah.
the third one is the most intense, and three guys come in and they throw him up in the air, and so he's very disoriented. He's getting beat up. He's not
Yeah.
just getting
Yeah.
punched in bed, he's like getting thrown around the room.
Yeah.
And in that disorientation, the woman shows up with lightning and thunder and chases the guys off.
Right. Right. Yeah. I
So
forgot to
it's
mention that. Yeah.
fair enough. No worries. But on a psychological level, the way I'm thinking of it is like, these negative voices, these things that beat us up, that keep us small, as we sort of bear them and not give into them, um, parts of ourselves can become clear. It's kind of a maturation process, and it's a bringing of maybe a more feminine element into Franz, into the hero. So he's sort of reuniting with some part of himself there.
Mm-hmm.
And just as like he's almost ready to leave, and she says one more time, so there's this like, oh, can you just make it through this last trial? And then the last trial is super intense, and it's like three times as hard as what he started out with, and why is this
Mm-hmm.
so difficult? And he doesn't know what he's doing. And like I can recognize that from my own life, that there are moments where I feel completely lost and I feel disoriented by what's going on. And I think for her, because there she shows up and she rescues him, right? And she chases off the sort of the dark men that have been harassing him, the sort of shadowy figures. She's now differentiated enough out of his shadow material to be this sort of savior figure for him. And they unite. They're betrothed or whatever it is. They're married. I forget exactly what happens, but turns out she's the princess. It's her castle. There's a belonging. He now belongs in the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And you see him change from the son of a groundskeeper who doesn't fit in to this handsome prince who everybody is jealous of, who is able to represent himself outwardly in this great way. So he's like made something of himself through bearing this suffering, but when it comes time to stand up for himself, he still wants to be rescued, just like she rescued him in the castle. So it kind of creates this mirroring of like, okay, now you have to be active in the outward world in an
Oh, yeah.
active way, and give up your arrogance, and give up your, stop holding on to these things that weigh you down, and be humble and be giving.
Yeah.
So you can sort of have to learn the second lesson of how to be in the world after you've been in the ancient castle and been reunited with these lost parts of yourself. Then you have to learn how to enact those parts in the world without falling back on being a child, without falling back on immaturity and being rescued and being saved all the time.
Yeah. I think that's terrific. Yeah. That really makes sense to me. And yeah, I like that image of the dark, ruined castle as something kind of the unconscious, and that yeah, you have to go. And it says yeah, he approached it, he crossed the threshold. There's a whole series of steps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then of course, when he first gets there, it's completely dark and silent. And that seems to me something about the spiritual journey, something about encountering, yeah, the darker parts of yourself. At first, it seems like nothing's going on. Like you have to wait a little bit before you start to see what's there. And then, yeah, and the men in black and she's in black, but then, yeah, she becomes it's kind of, she becomes differentiated, or you can think about like in therapy or in journaling or whatever type of, psychological journey you're taking, to where you're understanding something, you're starting to articulate things. You're starting to understand like what words do I use? How do I describe this? And it's not perfect. Yeah, it doesn't feel quite right. But then you're getting better at it over time as you're staying in the castle. You have to bear kind of your reactions and your suffering and everything and kind of keep going through it. And then, yeah, that makes sense to me what you said about, yeah, she finally is able to speak at some point, like after a couple of days or after, symbolically like 2/3 of the journey. Like you got to go through a lot before it starts to speak. And that's maybe why, like, a lot of people stay in addiction or stay in suffering, stay in like an abusive relationship or something, because yeah, they don't want to kind of bear that long kind of part where they just have to kind of take it and they just have to kind of keep going. And, you want the encouragement. And he later shows that, yeah, he's still, even after going through all that, he's still kind of a person who still needs who still can't quite complete the journey. And that's why the princess later leaves him. That you can say that's why your daemon will no longer speak to you or something like that for a while, because yeah, you're still not quite there. You're still secretly hoping that it will magically just make you feel better, instead of trying to develop yourself to where you're not screwing up and getting yourselves in these situations and reacting to society, reacting to other people, being how other people are.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that was powerful. I'm sitting with that because that's I can very much relate with that story. The daimon kind of being quiet and leaving you, the sense of
Yeah.
having missed the Grail Castle, like I was saying, or the sense of like I need to come back around again. That's very pertinent in my life, and the needing to be mature and respond to the external world and the internal world is, that's, I mean, I'm looking for work. I'm trying to figure out how to sort of make up for a lost project from a few months ago. So it's definitely like I both have the time right now to be on my spiritual practices in a way that I've not in a long time. But at the same time, I can't necessarily expect these things to come and save me. Um, I need to be able to take on the princes myself, so to speak, you
Yeah,
know.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that a little bit like a spiritual, is there that possibility of spiritual bypassing? Is that what spiritual bypassing is, when you're sort of hoping that, like if I meditate enough or if I calm my mind enough or something? I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm just saying this phenomenon maybe in general.
Hey, maybe I
Uh,
am. I'll look
mm,
at it. Go ahead. Yeah.
mm. But yeah, if I meditate enough, or if I calm my mind enough, or if I pray enough, if I go to temple, mosque, church enough, then everything will work out without like, oops, I kind of, yeah, I need to do these things. I need to do these practical things. Is that sort of what spiritual bypassing is?
I mean, basically, I'm going to say, yeah. I mean, that's the idea that like, one of the ways. I mean, because you can do it internally or externally, right? Like, so I was saying earlier, like, oh, I'm only going to focus on the good thing. I'm not going to notice the
Right.
part in me that's afraid. I don't want to deal with my repressed anger. I don't want to deal with the fact that, um, I'm really angry with my mom, but I never knew how to express it to her.
Mm,
My dad treated me like shit when I was a kid and kicked me
mm,
out of the house, and whatever it is. Um, so you can it's like if I just meditate hard enough, or I pray hard enough, or I go to confession enough times, or whatever else it might be, um, then I won't ever have to deal with that pain, and I can keep it at arm's length. So that's spiritual bypassing. Same thing with like, oh, I'm too enlightened. I'm too spiritual to deal with bills and money. I just that's crass, and that's materialistic, and I'm not that kind of person. So therefore, I don't have to balance my finances, and I'll just trust the universe will take care of me, which
yeah.
can get
Yeah.
you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Or I can hook up with a bunch of women and there will be no consequences because I'm doing it out of pure selfless expression of my left-handed tantric path. And there's no,
Yeah,
it's
that's
there's a
right.
lot of
That's right.
justifications. But even in the Bible, which is not the most justification heavy, spiritual path, Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of the Father or the kingdom of heaven, I forget, and all will be added on to you. So there
Mm,
is sort of an element where if you are seeking fame and fortune without having a spiritual
yeah,
core,
yeah,
you can end up in a
definitely.
bad place too. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's again, I think our last call we were talking sort of about like you can make a mistake on one side or make a mistake on the other side.
Mm,
And I think spiritual bypassing is to use the spirit to ignore the relative. Use
mm,
the absolute to ignore the relative.
mm,
But you can just as easily use the relative to ignore the absolute, and you end up
yeah,
with a spiritually dead life or a spiritually dead society that
yeah.
is craving some sort of reconnection with divinity. We've talked about the meaning crisis. I think that's an
Yeah, sort of
example
that's
of
our society, right?
yeah, that's material bypassing. Like everything I need is just money and numbers, and that's all that's gonna
Yeah,
I
physical
need to
health.
physical
Yeah,
health to have a good life. And then everybody's anxious and depressed all the time because they don't have that connection with the sacred that you also need to have.
yeah,
And so if you can't manage both, the connection with the higher and your place in the world and the fact that there are other people and you have bills, um, I don't think you can really have the meaningful, fulfilling life that you want without both of those axes kind of
yeah,
accounted for.
yeah. And this
But the
story,
spiritual should come first. Anyway, sorry.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, because if you take the material first and you're really good with your physical health and your networking and your job, and then maybe in the world, this material world tells you you are perfect, you're great, and maybe there's sycophancy and narcissism and stuff involved. You're not likely to seek out the meditation, prayer, whatever, like kinds of difficult practices that are humbling rather than like ego boosting after that. Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well said. Yeah,
And yeah, this story seems like it can prime one for just in 4 pages, just prime one to kind of expect a fall, expect that you'll have to make a lot of effort, that you'll really have to put yourself out there and still like there's a uniting, there's love, there's whatever at the end, but still, yeah, you had to go through a lot and still your father did not recognize you.
yeah, 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 yeah. There's not a homecoming for the Franz who left, who was kicked out. Like that part of himself never doesn't get to reunite with his father and be seen in the way that,
Yeah.
any human being who got kicked out by his father is going to crave.
Yeah, there's no
Uh,
prodigal son type of ending to this one.
yeah.
I thought maybe I was thinking about the father as a character, and he's very different from his son. He's one who always toils for another. And you can take that in a non-practical way, not as like someone who's just a worker, but like someone as opposed to the son who never really ventures out, who never really risks, who he keeps his nose to the grindstone always. The text says that something like the father when Hans returns, the father is still like kind of like hard at work for the king or something like that. So maybe there's this idea that and there's probably a Christian notion here, but of like faith over works or something like that, or faith
Hmm.
over law. But yeah, maybe there's this idea that the father has this one way of living, and it's just like I need to work 12 hours a day every day, and just like that's how things are, and he becomes embittered. And yeah, he can't appreciate that he has this maybe slightly whimsical or whatever son, and maybe he's a little lazy, but he doesn't Hans doesn't seem like he's exceptionally lazy. He goes out and he takes initiative. Eventually he suffers. He works. Um, he does things. So it seems like maybe the that's that father's character of just kind of, yeah, maybe an embittered kind of person who never really saw the world and kind of, yeah, is kind of like small. And
Yeah.
then he's kind of like, I imagined him like literally he didn't recognize his son. He's looking right at his son and he's not looking at his son. He's just seeing through his very myopic eyes out at another person. And maybe he only sees the trappings of his son now with his rich clothes and his retinue. And he just sees like some rich guy that like, is not in my class or just, yeah, he's not looking at the human being. He's not, there's this idea, there's something in mythology of, yeah, if, sight, and it has to do with like the depth of your vision, how connected you are to yourself in the world, right? And it's like he's not connected. I imagine he's just like, yeah, just focused on his little like plot of land or plot of ground, or not his, the king's, but you know, like, yeah, he's forever a servant. He's not, and I don't mean this as like a practical thing, like, but yeah, he's not independent. He's not independent. He's not adventurous. He's not virtuous. He's not loving. Uh, and he's blind. So that's probably why he doesn't recognize his son.
Yeah. Yeah. I think two things stand out. I mean, the whole thing was great, but two things really stand out. I want to comment on. One, you said he's working for the king, and I think that's really insightful in that like he's not working for himself. He's selling his life to someone else to solve their desires, their dreams. He's willing to, fulfill someone else's dreams just to be taken care of.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah, right.
and
Exactly.
whereas our hero, like, we're not quite sure what his dreams are. He never says, "Oh, he dreamed of being a knight," or he dreamed of whatever, whatever. There's not made clear, but he definitely goes out and like takes up the adventure that is given to him and shows up for it as best as he can. And even when he makes the mistake, he doesn't quit and go back to just, okay, I'm going to work for the king. He carries on. He takes up the challenge of, I mean, I think it's called the Iron Shoes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the name.
So he takes up the challenge of the iron shoes that are left him, even though
Yeah.
he's told this is impossible. You're never going to see me again, even if you wear through these. He's like, well, I'm gonna take them and I'm gonna wear through them. And at
That's
the
right.
end, he shows them to her, and she's like, oh, you have my shoes. So there's this. It's almost like the
That's what I
shoes are
meant.
are like a mirror of the ring, where the ring was like her ring, and she gave that to him, and then he misused it. Then instead of having the power of the ring, now he has the
Yeah.
burden and the responsibility of the shoes. But when
Yeah.
he shows up to her with the shoes, overjoyed that he has remembered her shoes, that he's worn them down as however low he's worn them down, going up and down the mountains in them or whatever. Um, so they become kind of this touchstone of their renewed relationship.
Yeah,
Um,
very good. That was very, yeah, I like that there's a parallel between the ring and the shoes. And yeah, there's another part of that parallel is the ring is issued with a rather blunt order. And
mhm.
so that's sort of what children need, don't cross the street, just real simple laws to
Mhm.
follow. And that's probably what his father does on the surface, is that
Yeah,
he's always following, but he's grumbling behind his back probably, but he's always following the what the king's wanting and hoping that he's going to get the king's kind of a plot of land or something like that, the king's approval.
yeah,
And 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 the and then the iron shoes are later issued with an order, so to speak, but he completely disobeys it. So he starts to understand the world as not like, I'm given this thing and I can use it in this way, and then misinterpreting it too. And later he's given less, but he knows what to do with it. So there's this this increase in his wisdom, his sight, his knowledge. So
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because there's in both cases he doesn't follow the instructions, but in the first one, to me it feels like it could be a commentary on like a dogmatic morality. Like you always have to
yeah,
follow the
yeah,
rules. Well,
yeah,
in the first case, he doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't follow what he's told. He doesn't listen to it and he gets in trouble. And in the second case, he also doesn't listen to it. He doesn't take it. He doesn't, but it's the difference is very clear as far as like which decision should be respected, which is a respectful decision and which one isn't, which one should we look up to, which one should we look down on. Like it's very clear, but in both cases he's kind of brushing off what he's told and knowing when to do that in the right way is I think a sign of maturity.
yeah, yeah. That's right. And the first case, the dogmatic morality with the ring and wanting to turn the cullet to be saved, that is kind of like fundamentalist sort of religion. Like, I, believe in X, Jesus, whatever, and everything's good after that. I'm better than other people that don't believe that. I will go to heaven, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to really explore and to really question myself and to really develop as a person. I have this trump card in the world, and it's a kind of a childish religion.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, it's so it's so black and white of what kind of gets you into the club and what being in the club means,
Yeah,
that then there's no real incentive to like do anything other than just follow the rules of the club. And again, you're sort of working for somebody else there. You're not somebody else is telling you what you need to do and you're saying, "Yes, I
right.
will do
Yeah,
that." You're not
exactly.
asking your soul what your soul needs of you in the moment.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's right.
yeah.
I was thinking of the boy Hans and his development, and I was thinking also what his what his raising by that father would be like, presumably, and and probably I was thinking that had to do something with his later sort of faltering and sort of needing to learn the hard way. Unfortunately, so I sort of wonder if he had been raised with more love and wisdom, if and maybe with a little tough love, maybe he needed to be pushed out. But if he'd been raised with more love and wisdom, I would think he wouldn't have had to learn from the school of hard knocks quite so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I hadn't really done that deep a dive into like his origin story, but no, that makes sense in that. If you look at like we were talking earlier, if you look at the father when the father sort of disappears from the story and the king comes in, like if you look at that as just sort of representing the father principle in general, the organizing structure of society, at least patriarchal society, but society in general, the father is usually more the mother is
Mm,
the like traditionally speaking, hunter-gatherer period. The mother is going to be more taking care of the kids, and the father's going to be more out of the
mm,
house. Although I'm sure there was more leeway there than we like to think there was.
mm,
Um, but archetypally, the father is usually something about how to interact with the greater world,
mm,
and the mother is more about how to take care of yourself or be taken care
mm,
of or be in the home or be in the village.
mm.
Um, and so to have sort of a father principle that doesn't teach you that
Yeah,
doesn't give you that sense of how to be in the world and how to be a man and how to be strong,
yeah,
then you end up looking for help. You end up, having to learn the hard way because you didn't have the data as a child. You weren't instructed in the ways that would have led you to be responsible in the way that
yeah,
like that you could be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm
So when
just
so I'm sorry,
mm.
one more
No,
thing,
no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no.
So when the groundskeeper father is replaced by the king, you sort of get this like, okay, you are no longer under the auspices of the worker father
Yeah,
archetype. You're now under the auspices of the king father archetype. You
yeah,
are a prince, you belong in this, you're in this world. Oh, but you don't know how to relate in this way because your father was so
yeah, yeah.
amiss. He did
That's
not
right.
instruct
Yeah,
you. And
yeah,
so when the father is improved, it shows that the son has not improved yet.
yeah,
And so he can't step into that new world until He goes on an adventure, learns guile, works hard, stands up for himself, and then takes care of other people, takes care of the poor. And then he's ready to like be the prince under the king, married the princess. Like he's able to step into that more noble realm, which, in those days, I think there was a stronger link between uh the nobility as being sort of like a higher symbol, a symbol of a higher level of humanity.
Hmm.
Whereas now I
Yeah.
don't know if we necessarily think that about our wealthy folks, our well-to-do folks. I don't know if we look up to them as like paragons of virtue or,
Yeah.
stuff like
And
that.
maybe they have less of a kind of idea of of their obligations or something like that. And but yeah, either way, that word noble, yeah, I take it to, in the story, the noble will be the higher born, but yeah, we can take that in a spiritual way of the person who's, ascending in spiritually and virtuously or, you know, um yeah, I don't know why I keep wanting to think about that father type. I guess because I am so interested in education, but yeah, just without going too much into it, I was thinking, yeah, it's sad to be raised that way. So there's no mention of a mother, so presumably, especially in those days, she would have passed away. You could, even wonder if she might have left the father, if he's kind of like an embittered, one-track mind, angry, kind of, unhappy person. And but either way, she's gone. There's no mention of any brothers or sisters. The later on in the party, the no the knights are like his brothers, and there's some echo here of like Joseph and his other brothers in the Bible, the jealous brothers. But uh but yeah, kind of growing up, you could see how, yeah, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. Like, uh, I'm sure he senses, well, I don't want to be like my dad. But like, yeah, there's no indication that he has any other sort of example. And then that makes it interesting thinking about how, okay, so his first contact with the world after kind of going out. So he goes out from the home territory and the homestead or whatever the king's realm. He goes out
Mhm.
into the woods, into the wild, and then enters, yeah, the dark, ruined, forgotten place. I'm just, yeah. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what to say about that, but that resonates with me as something important. Maybe that's like in modern language, that's like the son who was raised in a kind of bitter kind of place and maybe, let's just map it one to one. There was no mother around, and there's just the father, and maybe he's a workaholic, maybe he's an actual alcoholic or something like that. But yeah, there isn't much wisdom, love in the house. There isn't much stability. The only thing the father knows is to like kick his ass out of the house at a certain age. And then yeah, and that's a believable story to me. That's a believe even if he went to school in our society, he might not have seen like a good example among his teachers of who he wants to be. And he might not have, in the curriculum, he might not have learned very much that kind of teaches him what a good life is, who a good person is. And then yeah, he goes out and now he's on the streets, he's in the wild, and yeah, maybe he gets addicted. Maybe yeah, he has to, but eventually yeah, he has to face the void and the darkness of himself. So anyway, but maybe I went
Yeah.
went off too
No, no,
much
that
on
was great.
that,
I want
but
to riff on that. So he has to face the void and darkness of himself, and he has to go into the forgotten castle and get beaten up by all the shadowy men that are the, he has to
yeah,
feel the intense feelings.
right,
And
yeah,
he comes out and and I mean, if we're mapping this onto like like you were saying, like a real world rags to riches kind of story, like, oh, you grow up with this one dad and he kicks you out and you're kind of struggling in the world and then you go through this catharsis where you confront, you go through this pain of your demons instead of running from them. You turn and you face them and you're feeling whatever the princess is, the woman is like some part of yourself comes back. So your soul comes back into your body. You're alive again. You're not chasing addiction. You're like, oh, I made myself clean. I don't have to live with my father's story of me. But then in real world stories like, oh, you clean yourself up, you're off the streets, you get a job, you're working hard, you're doing good, and then like you do something and you fuck it up. You run into some kind of a problem or you get into a fight with your boss or whatever, and you crash again. And I think due to sort of a lack of father figure, or whatever, however you want to put it, lack of instruction. And I think what the story points to is like if you think of like the Greek tragedies, they'll often be like, oh, well, there's this personal flaw that leads, even after success, leads to this downfall,
Yeah.
right? But what this one's pointing to is like, hey, yeah, that's gonna happen. And when you fall, if you pick up the iron shoes and you work in the world and you try and make something of yourself, learning the lesson of what led to your failure, you will regain what you have lost and you will be better, you will be more able to hold on to at that time. I feel like so many people would give up at that point of like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I did all the work. I got clean or whatever. I got off and got off the streets and I'm doing better and I fucked it up again. I'm just a terrible person. And it's like, no, you had some disadvantages growing up and those are going to have lawful results and you can't you can't fault yourself. You can't take on the identity of the person who is subject to these things. You just have to use it as an opportunity to understand what it is that caused it. So in this case, the arrogant need to turn the ring, the need to show up and be seen as special,
Yeah.
the need to kind of make up for this feeling of, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, these guys are teasing me. Oh, I'm really annoyed and irritated. Why won't they stop teasing me? It reveals to Hans that he is still seeing himself as the groundskeeper's son. He needs to prove to these guys that he's not. He's got this beautiful. I do have this beautiful wife. I am this prince. Let me show you. No, but all of that is just him still holding on to that story of not being good enough.
Yeah.
And if you can take that as a learning opportunity and be like, oh wow, I did that to myself. I'm going to make it right. You can this even if the shoes tell you you're never going to see me again. If you go off and you, in the face of that, no, you go off and you say yes to it. I am gonna achieve this again. When you achieve it again, you will have come around to a higher version of yourself and therefore better able to match the sort of higher position that you had earned through your earlier labors.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And yeah, what you said about yeah, his developing being his active self. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, the sort of maybe he had an external locus of control before, and finally now with the iron shoes, it's like that is a long journey in iron shoes. But he finally is able to like take an active role in his life and to really uh to really work hard to go up the mountain and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you saying it's a long journey had me sort of lit up for me like walking in shoes made of iron. Like that's
I mean, he
every
literally
step
is
is going to
doing that,
be.
right? Like I think he's
Yeah, I think
because
so.
he
I mean,
wears them down. So he
yeah,
must be doing that. He must be actually walking in iron shoes.
yeah. The second to third to last line, he showed her the iron shoes and how worn down they were from his search. She was overjoyed to see her husband again,
Yeah,
and
he's
then they
been
had the
walking
real
on them.
wedding. Yeah. So for me, like the sort of symbolic image of the penitent man in the iron shoes trying to walk up the mountain to
Yeah.
reunite with the thing he has lost. Like the iron shoes to me are shame. Every step is harder because something's pulling you down. To
Mm,
be like, oh, I fucked up. Like again with the story that you were sort of drawing out of the sort of poor child that's like struggled on the streets and made
mm.
so oh I got off the streets and I had this thing and I and I fucked it up. Like every step towards making your life better is now going to be heavier
Yeah.
because of that failure and the shame around the failure.
Yeah.
And the iron shoes become the victim story. You're the dragging, you have to say,
Yeah.
no, I'm not a victim. I can be better
Yeah.
than this. No, the world isn't cursed. I can still, I'm not a cursed person in the world. There's still hope for me. I can keep going. And every step, now you have these shoes of your past failure, and you have to wear them down until you can sort of step through them or out of them. And then they're less heavy. With every step you take, they're less heavy. It's a
Yeah, and that
beautiful
makes
metaphor.
sense.
I hadn't even seen that until you
Yeah,
said what
it's
you said.
great. Yeah, it's great. And also, I didn't think until now of how so he does do the ascent and the really long journey up the mountain, which is kind of like 1,000 mile journey or something like that to the top of the world. And then he has to use his smarts and steal from the ogres, whoever these guys are at the top of a mountain, fighting over these objects. Doesn't seem like they're like divine figures or anything. They're rogues or ogres or something. And he uses his guile, multi-step of using one to get the other, doing this other thing. Like he pours out the bag of money a few times to kind of check it, but maybe to like distract them. But anyway, and then he puts on the cloak, puts puts on the shoes, and then uh, excuse me, and grabs a bag of money. So it's like multiple complex steps involving psychology, social psychology, and everything. So he's willing to, yeah, what can you say, martial arts analogy or something he puts in his reps or something like that. He does his 1,000 mile journey, but then he still has he still has nimbleness of mind and everything to kind of like navigate a complex and dangerous, difficult situation to get the gifts that then make his journey easy. Now he has the shoes of he has different shoes. He has the opposite kind of shoes. The iron shoes wore him down and were clog. Every step was a clog or whatever. And now he can take 100 miles in each step. So it's seems like now he does. What can you say? He's deserving, or he deserves the magic or something like that, or he's developed enough to he's big enough for those shoes.
Yeah, I almost feel like I want the story to say, let me see, I'm going to make sure it doesn't actually say this before I couldn't find happiness in the castle. So Amelia left the castle once began searching for traces of his runaway wife, but he could not find the castle where they had lived together in such happiness. Um, yeah, so he's lost. He travels to the mountain where he discovered three fellows fighting over three precious objects. Yeah, so it doesn't say anything. So what I wanted to say is when he gets to the top of the mountain, that it turns out he's worn through the shoes. Because that would be like, oh, he gets to the top, the shame falls away. He still hasn't found his wife, and he should like the character symbolically should have a moment of like, oh, I really thought when I got to the top of the mountain and I got through with my shame that like I was gonna find my wife and it didn't happen. And then he looks over and he sees these three disreputable characters having a fight, and he's like, all right, well, I'll go see what this is about. And there, right at the point where he's feeling lost and like he's done the task with the shoes. He got no reward as he was promised. He was not going to get a reward, but he still completed a task. And at that point, some other force comes in as represented by these three guys with the magic treasures, and he's able to recognize that opportunity and take advantage of it. And then, like you say, he gets the opposite kind of shoes, which I had not even had not occurred to me. And so it's almost like once you work through your shame, is in the same way that like the shoot wow so in the beginning, once he sort of went through the pain of being beat up by the guys, he earns the princess, and then he loses her, and then he has the shame of the shoes, and then once he gets through the in my version of the story, once he wears through the shame of the shoes, it would make sense for him to be rewarded with the magical items and the ability to then go after, if he had given up on the shoes before they were worn through,
Yeah.
then he wouldn't have earned the right to go and chase the princess again for the second time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's how life works. Like you do have to, yeah, you do have to do the work and go through the pain for a while and get everything, get what you're supposed to get of your current circumstance before you're ready to move on. And sometimes you have to learn that if this story were more realistic, so maybe he would, he would be wearing the iron shoes for a while and then he takes them off and he kind of he there's a few different times of him trying and failing before he finally really doesn't stop until he gets to the top of the mountain,
Hmm.
like
Could be like three mountains or something, just like the three nights in the bed with the guys beating him up.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. I was wondering, like, because when I was saying earlier of it, like it being two fairy tales, it's almost like there's this hidden third one in the middle that we're discussing right now that gets lost
Mm.
because they don't talk about the iron shoes at all, or how they got worn down. But I wonder if that's kind of on purpose to make you think about it, you know?
Yeah, that's
Because
interesting.
because
Yeah, go ahead.
just to explain, I realize I didn't really quite explain fully my thoughts. There are three nights that he spends in the bed, and each
Yeah.
time, it gets a little clearer, gets a little clearer. But then there's that first trial in the castle, and then there's the third trial in the castle, the second trial in the castle where the marriage is happening.
Mm.
Um, but the when's the second night? Well, maybe that's when he gets to the top of the mountain, but there can't be a princess there because she told him she wasn't going to be there. So that prophecy of the letter that she left him kind of gets fulfilled, but then he's able to move past it because he's worn through the shame of that the shoes represent.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't, and then yeah, and doesn't mention him specifically putting on the iron shoes, but do you think it's, yeah, he's worn through them? I mean, that's probably just like his that's just the economy of the story maybe, right? Because it tells us later that he wore them because it
Yeah.
tells us that he wore through them. So,
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's like because oftentimes where you have teaching stories like this, they'll put in like a strange something that's out of place or something that or they'll leave something out or they'll put something in that doesn't belong or they'll put something in the wrong way. And if you are following the story, if you're interpreting it like we are, like pretty intensively, you'll notice, oh, there's this missing piece. Oh, why is that there? And it
hmm,
kind of forces you, it re-engages your interest in the story and in like,
hmm,
oh, well, what else can be found in the sort of spaces between
hmm,
what's missing, what's not mentioned.
hmm.
Um,
So you're saying
sort of
sometimes that's intentional. There's intentional lack of complete fluidity that when you examine it as you're supposed to, then that sort of, yeah, stimulates your thinking, stimulates your
points to a
realization maybe.
deeper element that we discovered with the mirroring of the two shoes and the sort of like the element of shame and the element of having to sort of wear through that before you can sort of earn your earn your stripes in dealing with the shame before you even have a chance of regaining the princess that you lost. But once you do, once you get the new shoes, then you can go twice as you can go super fast. They're the opposite shoes. So once you have sort of overcome the shame, then you have this rush of energy of like, oh, I don't have to fight with the shame anymore. Oh, and I have all my energy of like wanting to go and do the thing. So you sort of have this double thing. And like you would need to really look at it deeply of like, oh, well, where were the shoes? And it focuses your attention on the shoes by not mentioning them until the end, because then you're like, well, why, where did he wear the shoes? What are the shoes about? And you think about that more and more.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting. Yeah. And it
I don't know if
did
that's
name,
true, but I like it. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
good. And just in case, yeah, you thought, yeah, just in case you wanted to ignore the shoes, yeah, the story is called The Iron Shoes.
Hmm. Hmm. And it ends like I think I read the last line, the second whatever. One of the last lines is he showed her how worn down the shoes were,
Right.
and she
Yes.
was
Yeah.
happy to see him again. So
Yeah.
like,
So it's without a doubt. Yeah, he was wearing them.
yeah, yeah.
Another little thing like that is that when he entered at the beginning of the story, when he entered the castle, He walked up to the entrance, crossed the threshold, walked through its many rooms. He didn't hear a soul. And then, exhausted, he sat down in one of the rooms. So it's only like three or four sentences, but since he's exhausted, that indicates that there's some kind of major effort or some kind of end of a journey kind of happening here, end of a part of a journey that's happening here. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of that economy of language that maybe makes you want to question it and to digest the story better.
Yeah. I mean, there we have a mirror to the top of the mountain, right? Like he
Yeah,
gets to the top of the mountain, that's the end of it. Or he loses
yeah,
the ring, like something ends, something finishes. He's exhausted, his energy is run out, and conveniently there's a bed and a woman that feeds him in this
yeah,
otherwise empty, overgrown, like ruined castle. So
yeah,
he keeps being saved right at the last moment.
yeah. Although with yeah, and so the castle and the top of the mountain are parallel, but the castle is like yeah, a dark, forgotten, man-made place, and it's a little more civilized, even though it's dark and ruined. But the top of the mountain is maybe yeah, this ascent towards heaven, and there's no bed there, there's nobody to save him. There's only the ogre type figures, and he has to use, even though he's exhausted, uh, or I presume he's exhausted.
Top of the mountain for sure.
Mm. And then yeah, he has to use all his wits to to get what he needs here. He's not being told what to do. He's not given food and a bed. So yeah, so it
Yeah.
shows yeah, this is a greater challenge for him, which shows that he's yeah, more developed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's his chance to show that he's not um that the weight of the shoes has taught him. He's learned the lesson
Yeah,
of whatever it
yeah.
is. He's still able to show up. Yeah.
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 Is there anything specifically about walking in iron shoes that we haven't kind of covered? I mean, I think of that as like, yeah, a 1,000 mile journey, suffering. You can think of like meditation, like boredom is something that I think a lot of people you're supposed to deal with meditation, right? And with any sort of worthwhile endeavor, if you are at the stage of development where like you always need to be stimulated, and we could say this is a larger kind of commentary on our own society with all our devices and everything. But yeah, if you're at the stage of development where you always need to be stimulated, you can't stand all the drudgery and boredom before you're before a next stage of enlightenment or whatever. Um, but yeah, do you take anything more out of and physical suffering too, or some kind of suffering with wearing the iron shoes for a long time? Uh, but do you take anything else out of that part of the story?
Mhm. Um, I think, especially with what you have had said about the sort of, the fast travel boots being like the opposite of the iron shoes. There's something about willingly accepting not even so much the punishment, but the consequences of your actions. And that
Yeah,
like, the princess throughout all of this feels like a higher portion of the prince. She's taking care of him. Uh, she loves him. She, and the giving of the shoes seems like an insult or a slight or a punishment, but in well, consciously, intentionally, in agreement, taking up the challenge that his failure, presents him with,
yeah,
he's able to get to a place where once that falls away on its own, he's able to travel so much more quickly. So it's
yeah,
like he it the we can think of the suffering as punishment, or we can think of the suffering as a gift,
yeah,
you know. Um, Same thing with boredom and meditation. We can think of it as an obstacle, or we can think of it as the thing to meditate on.
yeah.
Oh, I'm bored. I'm bored. What does it feel like to be bored? How do I know I'm bored? Where are the sensations in my body that go together with boredom? What does my mind do when I'm bored? do I let it do that, or what's my relationship with my mind as it's doing that? And there's all these, not that we want to be having this philosophical discussion while we're meditating,
Mhm.
but we we want to be mindful of all of these things. We can be very mindful of boredom, and the more mindful we are of these painful meditative experiences, or these unpleasant or emotionally unpleasant or just boring or sleepiness or whatever, the more we can turn our attention to those things. I think eventually, if we continue to attend to them, or even if it's something as intense as like grief or anger, or
Mhm.
if something's coming up in us, if we can attend to that in that way and willingly and consciously, they can fall away. And when they do, we are gifted with sort of the reverse of them, or
Yeah, yeah,
some sort of an extra power that comes from having that problem no longer having dominion over us.
yeah, yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah.
And yeah, when just thinking of the shoes themselves, that seems like a quick way in a narrative to kind of say, with every single moment you will be having to deal with this, burden with this. So that
Mhm.
that seems like, yeah, the best kind of way to indicate kind of this constant sort of burden, punishment, however you want to say it, this negative experience that you have to continually go through. He's walking through it every step, and slowly, and have endurance before until you get to the mountain, ascend the mountain, and then yeah, you have your chance to get through that, and to wear very different types of shoes.
Yeah, yeah, and you were talking about spiritual bypassing before, and I think that within the metaphor that we're exploring here, like you can just take the shoes off. You can just not meditate. You can just not practice. You can just not take the journey that's being presented to you. You can ignore the obstacle of boredom or anger or grief or frustration. You can ignore that, but it's always going to be there. And it's only when you have the right relationship to it, um, when you take it up willingly, but not as a, not as like a punishment, not as like a this is being done to me because I am bad. But in Zen they have, I mean, it's, they have a saying, the obstacle is the path.
Mm,
Like it's not that the thing in your way is stopping you from doing the thing you're supposed to do. It's that the thing is literally what, if life as a whole is trying to wake you up, is trying to give you whatever it is you want, and if you are seeking enlightenment or spiritual growth, life is giving that to you. So if you're meditating regularly, you're saying to life, I'm seeking spiritual growth. Life presents you with an obstacle, not to say you can't have it, which is kind of the typical understanding of this, but it's saying, okay, if you want spiritual growth, here is the thing you must attend to. You
yeah,
must, this is both the problem keeping you from what you want, the road to walk down to get to what you want, and it's what you want wrapped in a layer that you have to prove yourself worthy of getting through.
yeah.
So
That's
it's
right.
not even a punishment, it's a reward. It's like, ha, here's
Mm,
a more complicated problem that will grow you in the way you want to grow.
mm,
And if you don't
yeah.
want to take it up, then fine, but stop asking for it by meditating in this example.
Right. Yeah. If you want, yeah, take off the iron shoes and just be like you are.
Yeah, go
Just live
back
your life.
and work as a groundskeeper. Like no
That's
big
right.
deal. You can do that. That's there.
That's
But
right.
if your soul's happy doing that, then great. You're not making a mistake. If your soul's not happy, some part of you knows you've given up on this thing. What are you going to do about that? You going to wear the shoes or not? You have to wear them consciously. You have to be aware of what you're doing and take every step in them until they wear away.
That's right.
And or and they could just fall apart immediately. Like there's no saying that it has to be literally 1,000-mile journey, but you have to make the equivalent in your own mind, of your perspective, your relationship with the struggle. Like who knows how that's going to work? It could be immediate, it could be never in this lifetime, but as you work with your relationship with these things, your path opens up regardless, as long as you keep that genuine intention to grow as a person, or to show up, or to take responsibility for your life and your place in the world.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right. That genuine intention. And he did have that image of the princess in his mind to sort of, yeah, I don't want to go back to the work to the king's realm and work as a groundskeeper. I do have this different path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did have to be kicked. Maybe he did have to be kicked out of the farm in the first place. So kicked off the king's land in the first place to where he finally went to that castle. Maybe he wouldn't have done that before. So maybe that's the blessing that his blessing in disguise that his father gave him. I mean, and maybe if his father had recognized him, he wouldn't have discovered the king as a surrogate father or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But did you have any other thoughts about this story? I thought we digested it pretty well, and it's a lot more clear to me the different parts of it, the richness of it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I picked this one only because it had stuck out in my head uh when I first read this book. There's something about the Iron Tree. I was like, oh, I like that story, so let's talk about that one. But I definitely had not come to most of this previously. So yeah, very fruitful. And I don't
Yeah.
think I have anything else to say. This feels like a good, like a full meal, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
very, yeah. Yeah. For me too. Okay. Well, maybe we'll pick another story or talk about other topics next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.